BTS's Jungkook suddenly collapses in front of Jimin during a rehearsal. The camera recorded the moments when the world seemed to stop for Jimin. His face froze, his eyes widened, and his steps wavered. But what exactly happened? Is this just fatigue, or is there something bigger, darker, and hidden from the army? Jimin can't hide his emotions. The moment Jungkook fainted shocked him. What would you do if someone you trusted the most, someone you thought you'd never fall for, suddenly fell right in front of you? Not in the drama scene. Not part of the choreography. But real. It hurts. Suddenly, the whole room went silent. That's exactly what happened to Park Jimin that afternoon, when Jungkook, BTS's golden meanie, suddenly collapsed in front of him. And this time, the camera captured everything, and no one is ready to witness this moment. Even Jimin. Especially Jimin. The day started like a normal training day. All the members were present at Big Hit Studio, preparing for a special project that he said would take the world by storm. Relaxed atmosphere, joking, full of laughter. But who would have thought that those little smiles would turn into frantic screams in just a matter of minutes? Jungkook is known as an idol who almost never shows his weakness. He trains while the others rest. She sings at full strength even on days when her body looks exhausted. But that day, something was different. His face was paler than usual. His eyes seemed to avoid contact. And most strikingly, he hadn't said a word to Jimin since morning. Did they quarrel? Is there anything that keeps Jungkook away from Jimin? Jimin didn't think anything of it at first. But when a new rehearsal song starts playing and the lineup is rearranged, just as Jimin spins in for the duet part with Jungkook, a loud bang vibrates the room. Jungkook collapsed, just like that. It's as if gravity is forcing it. His body staggered and then fell, hard and barely moving. Everyone panicked. Some of the staff shouted. Others immediately approached. But there was nothing more shocking than Jimin's expression at that moment. It's freezing. Not running. Not crying. No screaming. Just standing, his eyes wide open and his whole face blank. It wasn't Jimin the army knew. It wasn't the warm smile he used to give. It was the face of a man who had just lost his breath. What exactly made him react that way? When he finally dropped his body next to Jungkook and grasped his hand, then everything broke. Jimin shuddered. Not because of the cold, but because of such a deep fear. Jungkook, wake up. No kidding. Please. And the cameras, yes. Cameras that record everything for the documentation of the exercises record the most human seconds that Jimin has ever shown. His cries broke out, his body trembled, and he continued to chant Jungkook's name as if it were a saving spell. But why? Why did Jimin's regular fainting bring such a shock? Official reports said Jungkook was experiencing acute fatigue. No sleep in a few days. Not eating properly. Too focused. But this isn't the first time Jungkook has pushed himself. Jimin knows that one of the staff at the location even mentioned that before the incident, Jimin had asked Jungkook to talk face-to-face. But Jungkook refused on the grounds of not feeling well. And this is where the clues begin to unravel. What is Jungkook hiding from Jimin? And is it possible? Jimin felt guilty. A few days before the incident, fans had noticed a strange interaction between the two. In the live broadcast, Jimin was seen avoiding eye contact with Jungkook, and Jungkook only answered briefly when asked about their collaboration. This signal didn't get picked up much by the army until it all collapsed in that studio. After the incident, Jimin refused to give a statement. He wasn't even seen coming out of the dorm for 2 days. And when he finally showed up, his face couldn't lie. Puffy eyes.
Blank stare.
And when asked by reporters about Jungkook's condition, Jimin simply replied, I should have known. I'm too busy. I'm not looking. Too busy? Didn't see what? Is this about the pressure Jungkook is facing? Or an unfinished quarrel? Those questions are now hanging in the air, teasing all who saw that terrible moment behind the scenes of the cameras. Exercise videos leaked to the public reveal more than expected. After the staff arrived and began evacuating Jungkook, Jimin did not join. He sat on the floor, clutching his head, then shouted quietly, barely audible. But in the voice recording, one sentence is clearly recorded. "I'm sorry, Jungkook." Sorry for what? Currently, Jungkook has reportedly improved, but he has not yet appeared in public. Haven't uploaded anything yet. Didn't even greet the army in Weverse as usual. And this silence makes it all feel so much heavier. Some fans began to speculate. Is the mental pressure too high? Is this the result of something happening internally among the members? Or is this a sign that there is a dark side to the industry that is finally making Jungkook no longer strong? And what about Jimin? Why was he so beaten? Did he see something we all didn't know? This incident opened a new veil in their relationship. More than just colleagues. More than friends. There is a deeper emotional connection which now looks fragile, cracked, and full of wounds. Could this be a turning point in their relationship? Is the army prepared for the possibility that the most painful moment between Jimin and Jungkook isn't over yet? And when the camera comes back on, the question isn't just, how is Jungkook doing now, but also, what actually happened before he fell? And why was Jimin so devastated to see her? What hurts more than seeing someone fall in front of you, if not a haunting sense of guilt because you feel it's your fault? The day after the incident, the rehearsal room remained empty. There is no schedule, no recording, and the most striking, no Jimin. The usually very scheduled big hit staff are now seen walking restlessly down the corridor. Some even hide their mobile phones, fearing to record any sound that could leak out. But one eyewitness who couldn't contain his emotions was a senior choreographer who had been close to BTS. She said, when Jimin came into the treatment room, he didn't cry anymore. But the expression, "I've never seen Jimin like that." He looked at Jungkook in a way that, honestly, broke my heart. Later that night, someone from the production team leaked that there was a conversation that happened when Jimin was finally able to be alone with Jungkook, who was conscious even though he was still weak. A word came out of Jim's mouth. "Why didn't you tell me?" Jungkook's answer was not recorded, but anyone who heard the question knew that this incident was not merely due to physical exhaustion. There's something deeper, something Jungkook kept to himself. And Jimin, known as the most sensitive figure in the group, doesn't know it. Does Jimin feel like a failure as a friend? Or was it Jungkook deliberately hiding it from her? Their closeness is no longer a secret. From his debut until now, ARMY has always seen how Jungkook trusts Jimin in many ways. But that's exactly what makes this incident feel like broken glass in the chest. If Jungkook falls and Jimin doesn't know why, what does that trust mean? And is Jungkook silent because he doesn't want to burden Jimin? Or because there was a wound that actually came from Jimin? 1 week before the incident, a small incident went unnoticed by many fans. In an interview session for their documentary, Jimin had a laugh while discussing Jungkook's training mistakes. Light jokes. One sentence, "You're so tired. You're usually the most precise." At that moment, Jungkook just smiled. But in the video, if you look closely, the smile does not reach the eyes. The observant army began to upload fragments of old videos, interviews, live, even fan cam. In recent weeks, Jungkook has noticeably lost the glow in his eyes. Some call it just being tired because of a schedule. But now, in the aftermath of that swoon, all those little clues feel like puzzle pieces that are starting to form a big and dark dash picture. I asked Jungkook hiding mental stress. Is he not good enough, even for himself? During one episode of BTS Run, when they were talking about dreams of the future, Jimin asked, "Are you happy, Jungkook?" At that time, Jungkook replied quickly, "I'm happy because there are you guys." But now, that question is echoing in many people's heads. Did I ask that so? Or is it just to calm others down? The third day after the incident, leaked CCTV video emerged from a hallway to the training room. Jungkook seems to be walking slowly, alone. His hand held the side of his stomach, and he stopped twice while leaning against the wall. But when a staff member walked by and greeted him, Jungkook stood up straight as if nothing had happened. A minute later, he entered the training room, and 12 minutes after that, he fainted. The video quickly spread to a closed community of fans. And all those watching admitted one thing. Jungkook was holding back something. And he forced himself to perform well in front of everyone. Then what? Is it because of the pressure of the comeback project? Or is it because of a personal problem that even the other members don't know about? And this is where another theory arises, more alarming. After Jungkook was treated and the group's activities were temporarily suspended, Jimin appeared in a short live broadcast. His face looked thinner, and his voice seemed to withstand the explosion from within. He didn't talk about Jungkook directly, but he sang one song that made ARMY shudder, Promise. The song, which he wrote during the toughest time of his life, is about a person who feels like he has failed to take care of his loved ones. Lyrics like, I'm sorry. The next day, after a tearful moment on a park bench, Jimin was nowhere to be seen. He didn't show up at the Big Hit building. His personal Instagram account, which is usually active, suddenly stopped updating. In fact, someone from the production team mentioned that Jimin canceled a solo rehearsal session in preparation for a solo project. One sentence from the staff is enough to make a commotion. Jimin said he needs some alone time, and he left without saying when to return. What really happened when they sat together that night? Did Jungkook reveal something Jimin wasn't ready to hear? Or vice versa, did Jimin feel that he had gone too far to disappoint Jungkook, so he chose to stay away? Some ARMY believes that Jimin's decision is directly related to the psychological pressure he experienced. Jimin not only blames himself for what happened to Jungkook, but also feels that his presence can no longer be the strength it once was. It feels empty. And when people as strong as Jimin start to feel like they're no longer needed, that's the real danger point. A few days after Jimin disappeared from the public spotlight, Jungkook's Instagram account shook things up. Not a video. Not a selfie, but just one short post on Instastory. I'm sorry if I was too strong alone. The phrase burned in the heads of millions of fans. Because it wasn't just words, it was an outburst from someone who had harbored for too long. Jungkook doesn't blame anyone, but indirectly, he uncovers his deepest wounds. All this time, he's been trying to bear it all on his own, and the sentence came after a meeting with Jimin. Does that mean that Jungkook doesn't feel supported? Is it some kind of insinuation that he feels abandoned, even by his own best friend? But even more heartrending is the way fans have begun to unpack all of their interactions over the past 6 months. In every live concert, even backstage, there are many small moments that turn out to be big changes. Jimin often looks at Jungkook, but Jungkook rarely returns the gaze. Did Jungkook get away first? And if so, why? 4 days after Jimin disappeared, an editor from BTS's documentation team anonymously leaked something that stirred up a stir. A short 42-second clip that was never released to the public. In the clip, they are heard rehearsing at night. About a week before Jungkook collapsed, there was Jimin's voice that sounded very loud, angry, and desperate. Why didn't you tell me, Jungkook? I can help. Why are you always silent? The voice followed a long silence. Then Jungkook replied very quietly, because you're tired too, Hyung. The tape was never intended for public consumption. But after the leak, thousands of ARMY cried on social media. Many realized that Jimin and Jungkook's relationship was not going well long before the fainting incident. This is not just a friend drama. These are two human beings who both endure wounds, but choose different ways to deal with them, and too late to realize that they are moving away from each other. 2 weeks after his disappearance, Jimin reappeared. But he is no longer the Jimin we knowed. He came into the studio in a dark hoodie, without a smile. Usually, he would greet the staff one by one. But this time, he just stared straight ahead, then walked into the rehearsal room. Jungkook's already inside. Witnesses said that when the two met, there was no hug. No smiles. No greeting. They just stared at each other for almost 15 seconds. And at that time, one of the dancers had caught Jimin's words that slowly came out. I'm not ready if you're not honest. Does this mean Jungkook still has something? Or Jimin wants to know the real reason why Jungkook never told him that he was in critical condition? ARMY was stunned when Jungkook suddenly opened the nights live, unannounced, without makeup, with just a hoodie and dim lights. No music. No topic. After 3 minutes of silence, he finally spoke. Sometimes I think I'd better shut up. Because if I talk, I'm afraid everything changes. Then he lowered his head, hold back the tears. And the next sentence broke millions of hearts. But maybe when I passed out,